Never. God's principles never change. So if you're looking at something that can be different in different cultures, that's probably an application. Because the principle never changes. An application is how you do a principle in your particular place. Appropriate application in your place. All right. So, I thought I might be chased out as a heretic after the morning, but I'm still here. By this afternoon, I may be disfellowshipped. Sabi ni Michael kanina, baka mapaaga kami makauwi. Maybe my wife will get to see me sooner than she thought. Because what we're going to tackle next is jewelry. All right, so the idea here is just some practice. We're going to go through several different issues that are somewhat controversial, somewhat confusing. Minsan itong mga pinag-awayan natin sa Sabbath school, or between new members and old members, and anyway. So we're going to look at some of these things in the light of principles for practice sake. Okay. Pwede ba ang jewelry or hindi pwede? Oh man, you guys are too advanced. It's hard to teach this class. Motive? Okay. All right. What do people typically understand the Adventists' teaching to be tungkol sa jewelry? No jewelry. No jewelry allowed. Okay. Please get out your Bibles. And read for me Ezekiel 16:11 to 13. Someone come up, please, to the mic and read that for us. Ezekiel 16:11 to 13. Akala ko pupunta ka na sa mic. 11 to 13. Adrian, or, you.
Ezekiel 16, verse 11 to 13.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 11, I decked thee also with ornaments, and I put bracelets upon thy hands, and a chain on thy neck. 12, and I put a jewel on thy forehead, and earrings in thine ears, and a beautiful crown upon thine head. Thus wast thou decked with gold and silver, and thy raiment was of fine linen, and silk, and broidered work. Thou didst eat fine flour, and honey, and oil, and thou wast exceeding beautiful, and thou didst prosper into a kingdom.
Okay, thank you. Is it Shah? Yeah? Shah. And you? Shah. So I had it backwards. So Cha and Shah. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Cha. Okay, so in this verse, in this passage, ano ang sabi ng Diyos tungkol sa jewelry? Ibibigay niya daw sa kanyang kasintahan. Who is giving the jewelry? God is giving the jewelry. And who's he giving the jewelry to? To his bride. So, this means that jewelry is a good thing, right? I think so. There's an I think so. There's an this one is metaphorical. It's metaphorical. It is symbolical. Okay, Israel is not literally a woman that was laying on the ground in her blood. Okay? But can we at least say that God was not using jewelry in a negative sense here? In the metaphor, in the symbolism, jewelry was a symbol of his love and affection and his taking care of her as a royal person, as a princess, as a queen. Okay, is fine flour a bad thing? Masama ba ang harina? No. He fed her from fine flour. Yeah, unless you just take a handful of it. Yes. Okay? So, both of these things, yung pagpakain sa kanya ng fine flour At honey, is honey a bad thing? No, no, no. The flour and the honey and the jewelry were all things that God gave in symbolism, yes, but they were all things that God gave in a positive sense sa kanyang kasintahan, sa kanyang mahal. Okay? But it gets better. We're going to get really confused by the time we're done here. Exodus 3:22. Who would like to come to the front and read Exodus 3:22? Quick volunteer, or I'll have to volunteer you. Ready na si Nanay?
22 says, "But every woman who shall ask of her neighbor, and the woman who lives in her house, articles of silver and articles of gold and clothing, and you will put them on your sons and daughters, thus you will plunder the Egyptians."
All right, thank you, Punay. So, the Israelites have been working for 400 years, am I remembering that right? 400 years in Egypt with no pay. They've been slaves, and now God says, okay, it's time to get your wages. And the wages they were going to get were all of these ornaments of gold and silver and different things, different metals, different jewelry. Okay? So, they've gotten their pay, na-plundered, sinamsam nila ang mga taga-Egypto, then they put them in their pockets, and they left Egypt. Maybe we didn't hear the verse. Kasi maraming nag-guess. Put them on your children. So it's not just that they're supposed to, hindi lang kunin nila yung jewelry, but they're actually supposed to wear it. And who was it that was telling them that they're supposed to wear this jewelry? It was some crazy teacher from the other side of the world. No, it was God. So let's all go into Valencia this afternoon, buy ourselves some jewelry. No, we're not finished yet. We're not finished yet. But what I want you to see is that God, apparently in the Bible, hindi naman sadyang evil, hindi naman sadyang masama ang ginto. And it's not even sadyang masama kung ang ginto ay ilagay sa ating katawan. We're going to look at where it does become wrong. But it's not wrong because it's gold. And it's not wrong because it's on our body. That's not what makes it a good thing or a bad thing. That's not the definition of what is appropriate or not appropriate. Is anybody not convinced yet at this point? I know it's only 2 verses, but is it clear that at least in these 2 verses, God doesn't seem to be calling gold on someone's body inherently evil? Okay. So what is it then that becomes the problem? So now let's go to one of the favorite passages that we use sa mga evangelistic series natin tungkol sa jewelry, Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 3. And I need someone please to read 18 to 23. And I'm going to read it with you so I make sure to follow. Isaiah, what did I say? 3. Starting in 18 and going to 23. Novi.
Verse 18 to 23. "And that day the Lord will take away the bravery of the tinkling ornaments about their feet, and their collars and the round tires like the moon, the chains and the bracelets and the mufflers, the bonnets and the ornaments, the legs and the headbands and the face tablets, and the earrings, the rings, and the night jewels, the scepter, the changeable suits of apparel and mantles, and the withals, the crispy pins, the glasses and the fine linen, and the hoods and the veil."
All right. Thank you. So, finally, solve na ang problem. Okay tayo bilang Adventist. Kasi bawal daw doon ang jewelry. It says that God will take away the necklaces. He will take away the earrings. He will take away the bracelets and the anklets So finally, we're okay. Whew. We're safe. Bawal nga pala. Bawal nga pala ang hikaw, ang porsilas, tama ba? Dito ang porsilas? Bracelets. At ang, ano nga sa Tagalog? Quintas. Quintas. Pero wala yata sa Tagalog yung anklets, right? Meron ba? Porsilas pang paa. I don't know. So, we're all good. But, it doesn't just stop there. It keeps on going. He's also going to take away the turbans. So, in their day, they wore turbans as a hat. So, kuya, hindi ko alam ang pangalan mo, kuya, dito sa likod. Bawal pala ang sa likod. I'm just teasing you. Biro lang. Pero ibig sabihin, dito sa talata, if we say that bawal ang hikaw at ang porsilas at ang kwintas, it also says bawal ang any kind of headdresses. Oh. Yeah. And what about perfume? And mirrors. Oh my. Sulads is in big trouble. Because there's a mirror inside of our room and there's a mirror right outside of our room. And at our church, we have a mirror. Oh no. Talagang nakasala na tayo. And purses. Oh, the ladies, no purses. Bawal magdala ng mga bag. Yeah. You have to take a whole big backpack. Hindi pwede purse lang. Yeah. And cloaks and shawls. So walang balabal or malong. Parang ganun. Bawal yun. Bawal. Fine robes. Kailangan ang suot natin ay hindi yung mga mabuti. Kailangan mga pangit ang suot natin. Okay? We can't choose just one thing that we like, one thing that fits with our understanding or our narrative, and ignore all of the rest. Either all of these things are wrong, or they're not necessarily wrong, and we're not yet getting the principle. We cannot pick and choose what we want from the same passage. That's bad exegesis. It's bad hermeneutics, which are just fancy words for saying it's not interpreting it correctly. We're picking and choosing what we want. The Bible doesn't work that way. And we talk to other denominations and say, you're misunderstanding the Bible because of doing this. We shouldn't do it either. Okay, so let's see if we can actually find the principle that's behind this. So the problem is, I did just what we say other denominations do. I didn't give you the whole context. So we need to start back in verse 13. So can somebody come and read 13 to, where did we start? 13 to 17. Isaiah 3, 13 to 17. 3? 13 hanggang 17. 13 to 17.
Isaiah 3 verse 13. The Lord standeth up to lead and standeth to judge the people. The Lord will enter into judgment with the ancients of these people and the princes hereof. For ye have eaten up the vineyard, the spoil of the poor is in your houses. Why say ye that ye beat my people to pieces and grieve the faces of the poor? Saith the Lord God of hosts. Moreover, the Lord saith, because the daughter of Zion are haughty and walk with stretched forwardness and marconized, walking and dancing as they grow, making a secret with their feet. Therefore the Lord will smite with the staff the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts.
All right, thank you. And then it goes on to say that God will take away all these things from them. So what were the two things that Israel was doing wrong? There were two things here. They were beating them into pieces. It says they were grinding the faces. Have you seen yung panghasa, the old grinding wheels that would turn like this? They were holding their faces to the grinding wheel. Ginigiling ang kanilang mukha. In order to, ibig sabihin, pinapahirapan nila ang mga dukha, ang mga mahirap, to get more money from them. To do what? To buy luxurious things that they didn't need that were very, very expensive. And then, how were they using those things? How were they wearing them? They were wearing them to jangle on their ankles. So as they would walk, cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. Yeah. And it says they were swaying hips and outstretched neck. Sa Tagalog yata, pakinding-kinding. Yeah. So they were showing off kung gaano kaganda sila, kung gaano kayaman, how rich they were, how beautiful they were, how powerful they were. So the two issues here are pride and oppression/stewardship. Okay? And pride. The principles behind this are pride and humility and proper stewardship. Again, is gold inherently evil? No, God created it. Is putting gold on your body necessarily evil? Not either. But if it is a matter of pride or stewardship, then it becomes something wrong. Okay? And yes, there are other complications to that. Like Paul says, kung nakakatisod sa iyong kapatid, kahit malaya ako, even if I have the liberty, if it's going to cause my brother to stumble, wag na lang muna. Wag na lang muna. Okay? So I'm not trying to cause like a major uproar in the church here. I just want us to go back to the underlying principles. If we understood this, many of our arguments and fights, many of our Sabbath school classes would not have to happen. Okay? And question, can these two principles be applied to other things as well? All right, seems like everyone's in agreement. Yes. So what other things could they be applied to? Money? Money? Vehicles? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Houses? Food? Recreation? Yeah? So let's do vehicle. Well, let's stay with jewelry for a minute. So in America, sometimes there are those who don't wear anything on their ears. They don't wear anything on their neck. They don't wear anything on their wrists. But they have diamond tie clips. A diamond. Yung clip ng corbata is a diamond. It's like a big diamond, okay? Like the kind of diamonds when I went to the Robinsons in Manila that were like 500,000 pesos kind of diamonds, right? Okay. So I may not be like what we would typically consider jewelry, but it would still follow under this problem. Vehicles. If you are buying a Ferrari, alam ba rin yung Ferrari? Okay. Kung bumibili tayo ng Ferrari, is that good stewardship of God's money? Why not?
It's all right. It's just 1% of your money.
If you can afford it? Okay. I would push back just a little bit in the fact that a Ferrari is pretty much useless as a vehicle. And it is always breaking down. Yeah, it's pretty much for racing or for showing off. And so it's always breaking, and like any little thing you do, like turn a bolt and it costs $500. Okay? Like just to show it to the mechanic costs several $100s. It's not practical. Okay? Now, Now, if you have sufficient funds, would you want to choose ano yung pinaka talagang sira-sira lagi ng mga sasakyan? A surplus Rusco. Yeah. Now, I want to be careful because wala namang masama sa Rusco, okay? Wala namang masama sa Rusco. Pero sabihin na lang natin, if you have the sufficient funds, would you choose a Ferrari? Probably not good stewardship. Probably wrong ang motives para bilhin yun, especially as a missionary. But would I also, I have enough funds, would I still go for a second-hand, lumang-luma, sira-sira na Rusco? It's very, very cheap. But the problem is the maintenance. Okay, so it's exactly. Stewardship does not necessarily mean laging bili ng pinakamura. Okay, so my wife, and she's probably watching me right now saying, why are you telling me this? My wife loves to buy chinelas na halaga 20 lang. Okay, the 20 peso flip-flops. And I say, please don't buy that. Oh, but it's so cheap. It's so cheap. Like your dragon flip-flops cost 100 pesos, and these only cost 20 pesos. And I say, yes, but is it really going to be good stewardship? And sure enough, 1 to 2 days later, sira na yung 20 peso flip-flops. Okay? So say 2 days later, she buys another pair of 20 peso flip-flops. And talagang maingat. The next time, maybe it lasts a week. And then she buys another 20 peso flip-flop. Okay? And then another week, another 20, 40, 60, 80. And another week. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 month. 1 month and 1 week. She has now spent as much as I spent on a dragon that will last me 6 to 9 months. Kung sa bundok, more like 4 months siguro. Pero dun sa Cavite, 6 to 9 months. Branded is better. Yeah, in that case. Which is actually, so this is 6 months, and this is 1 month. Which is actually better stewardship, the more expensive or the less expensive? In this case, the more expensive. Yeah. Which is why, like with vehicles, which is why many organizations, if they have the funds, will choose Toyotas or Nissan pickup trucks, because or Isuzu, all three of those are like mid-grade. Hindi sila yung pinakamahal, pero hindi rin sila yung laging inaayos. They're mid-grade na tuloy-tuloy. Matagal, hindi mo kailangan ayosin, hindi sobrang magastos ang pag-repair. So, stewardship. All right, let's go back to jewelry again. Meron kaming missionary dati na na-assign sa Nepal. And this place in Nepal, in western Nepal, it's west of Pokhara. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Huas Valley. Anyway, it's west of Pokhara. And in this particular place, I don't know if this is common all across Nepal, but in this particular place, ang mga babae doon, kung kasal, if they were married, they would wear a very simple necklace of red beads. Have you heard of this? Okay. You've seen it. Okay. So what happened in this place is ang missionary na pumunta doon, family sila. So husband and wife and 2 kids. Pumunta sila doon at ang pagkaalam ng asawang babae, anything that you put around your neck is jewelry. So pagdating nila doon, nakita nila na ganun, sinabi sa kanila, the people told them, this is our custom, this is the way we do things, this is our culture. Pero sabi ng babae, as an Adventist, I will not wear jewelry. Ano ang nagiging effect sa mga tao doon sa lugar na yan? Ang tingin nila sa babae, hindi asawa. She was living with a man that was not her husband. Halata na talagang meron silang ginagawa kasi may anak pa sila. Pero hindi sila kasal. Effective ba silang bilang missionary or hindi? Hindi effective. Was wearing that red beaded necklace a stewardship problem? No, I don't know how much it cost, but it's very cheap. It's just plastic beads, right? Yeah. Was it a pride issue? Were they wearing it to show off? No. In my personal understanding, dapat sinuot niya. In that situation, that's a case where it wasn't a jewelry issue. It wasn't a pride or stewardship. Dapat sinuot niya. Actually, yung hindi pagsuot niya ay naging dahilan kung bakit hindi effective sila bilang missionary. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, another situation, another circumstance. This comes from Papua New Guinea. Another story from Dale. You really got to get Dale someday to come. Marami talagang kwento siya. So this Dale, when he was, I don't remember what the other story was. Anyway, at this point, he was starting to study the culture more and starting to parang nagbukas ang isip niya na he didn't really understand what he was seeing in different places, different situations. Hindi niya lubos na naintindihan. So more open-minded siya. Kaya nakita niya isang babae na marami siyang mga earrings na yari sa feathers, balahibo? Yeah, feathers ng kasuwari. Nakakita ba kayo ng kasuwari? Nakakita ba kayo ng ostrich? Ostrich. So it's related to an ostrich. It's a big bird. And it's really deadly, actually. Pinakamaraming tao na pinatay ng hayop doon ay either wild boar or kasuwari. Matapang talaga yung kasuwari. But anyway, they use it for meat though. They hunt it and they eat it. And so this lady had all of these, like punong-puno ang mga tainga niya ng mga balahibo ng kasuwari. So trying to be open-minded, sabi ni Del, Auntie, ang ganda talaga ng mga ano mo, ng mga aritis, earrings mo. Can you tell me about them? Where did you get those? And the lady's face lit up. She was so excited, so happy. She said, you know what happened? My husband, he is such a good provider. He's such a good hunter. He takes care of his family so well. In that place, there are many men that don't take good care of their families. And so when she was so grateful to her husband at gusto niyang ipagmalaki ang kanyang asawa, yung mabuting ugali ng kanyang asawa. Gusto niyang i-proclaim sa buong sityo kung paano yung asawa niya ay talagang alagang-alaga siya at ang kanyang mga anak. She wanted to set him up as a good example to the community. So she said, how can I do this? How can I do this well? Na hindi parang pinagyabang ko lang doon sa kung saan-saan. She said, this is what I will do. Every time my husband brings home a cassowary, I will take one feather from that cassowary and I will put it in my ear. And look how many feathers I have in my ear now. It's full, like I can't fit anymore. Punong-puno na talaga. Was that a bad stewardship issue? In this case, it was actually a good stewardship issue. Her husband was providing for his family, was taking good care of his family. Yung mga anak niya ay mataba at malusog dahil sa mabuting pangangalaga. Was it a pride issue? Well, like a negative pride issue. Yeah, she was not being boastful or trying to show off. No. Yes, the kind of pride that we have when I'm so proud of my son for studying really hard. Yeah. It was a positive thing. So in that case, it was also not jewelry in the way that we think of jewelry as being negative. All right? So next time that we run into a case of jewelry in the church or out of the church, we need to go back to the principles and ask, is this a pride issue? Is this a stewardship issue? If not, is this something we should make a big deal out of? Or is it not something we should make a big deal out of? You still have to apply it in your own case, in your own situation. Hindi ito prescriptive na ito ang dapat gawin ninyo. Okay? I will tell you one thing though. We as Christians, as Adventists, many times we need to open our minds more. And one of the things that I did on my project, dun sa aking pagmamisyon, is when I first came, just my presence there really disturbed them. Like magulong-magulo, pagdating ko lang, just because I showed up as a missionary. So there's a huge stress level in the church, in the tribe, in the village. So I just lied low. Like tried to be as quiet, as calm, as non-confrontational as possible. Until eventually things started to level out. But do people learn when it's peaceful for too long? Unfortunately, not really. So what I would do is I would actually take the next step. I would do one more thing. I would choose what is something that's just a little bit uncomfortable, pero hindi yung talagang makakabagbiyak ng church, but something just to push them a little bit more. And then that would parang medyo magulo ulit. Pero through that, we would have more discussions, more Bible studies, more going to the Word and prayer and talking together. And we would figure it out, and then it would calm down again. Okay? That is how to grow healthfully. Hindi yung talagang dala agad ang lahat ng mga reforms, not that kind of reform, but yung mga pagbabago, yung mga pagbubukas ng isip, agad-agad na matitisod sila. But also at the same time, not just leaving people in an unhealthy situation and just hayaan na lang. No. All right, so let's look at some others. Oh, there's one more example of Julia, also from Dale's project. Another time, he was doing culture study at gusto niyang malaman kung ano ang talagang suot nila traditionally. So, bago pa lang siya, nung nangyari ito, he just arrived. And in this tribe, in the Kamea tribe, they wear grass skirts and nothing on top. And so he went to this lady, and she had lots and lots and lots of plastic bead necklaces. Like, parang paikot-ikot-ikot-ikot, makapal na. And so he went to her and he said, Auntie, I'm doing this culture study and I'd like to know, ano ang mga suot? Ano ang mga clothing ng mga Kamea? Yung tribong Kamea. What do Kamea people wear? And she said, we wear this grass skirt. And he said, that's nice. Well, what about on top? What do you wear on top? And she kind of thought a little while and looked around and she said, she picked up the beads. And he said, no, I'm not talking about jewelry. What do you wear? Ano ang suot ninyo? Pangtaas. And the lady thought a little bit, and then she picked up the beads. And he said, no. Somehow, parang may miscommunication yata tayo. I'm not asking about what you do for jewelry. I'm asking about what you wear on top. And the lady parang frustrated. Sabi ko nga sa iyo, this is what we wear. And then Dale said, oh. He realized, again, this is PNG. It rains every single day. It's hot. It's humid. It's wet constantly. Fungal infections on the skin is a big problem. And so, wearing a shirt, wearing sa mga Native Americans noon, minsan meron silang mga suot ng mga balat ng mga hayop, like deer skin. In that situation, something like that would not be actually very sanitary, very healthy. That was what she was wearing for modesty's sake, for her in her particular situation. But speaking of modesty, let's look at modesty as our next one. What does the Bible teach about modesty? And I'd like some Bible verses to support what you say. Ano ang turo ng Biblia? Proverbs 31:30. Oops. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Okay? All right. Any others? What does the Bible teach about modesty? 1 Timothy. Ano ulit? 1 Timothy 2 verse 9. I also want women to dress modestly, with decency and propriety, adorning themselves not with elaborate hairstyles, or gold, or pearls, or expensive clothes. Okay. So a different translation says no braiding of hair. So bawal bang magsalapid? You say no. Why not? So why is it not wrong to braid hair? What does it say?
Not with braided hair.
Not with braided hair.
Maybe in that time, they spend a lot of time braiding their hair.
Okay. All right. All right. That's a little bit of a sideline question, though. What I really want to ask is, it says that women should dress modestly, right? What does modest mean? Uh-huh. The character. The character. Yeah. And the same with the Proverbs. It's really talking about the character. It's not that beauty is a bad thing. Yeah, but the character. All right. Any others? Any others? 1 Peter 3:4. Let's start in verse 3. Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. Absolutely. So, similar to what Heather said, this is really getting at the character, which is 100% true and correct. But I'm still confused as a new fledgling Adventist when I first come to the church, when I'm first attending the Bible studies or ready to be baptized even, because I'm told I should be modest. I should wear modest clothing. What is modest? I still haven't heard, I've heard good definitions of character, modesty, but what should I wear or not wear?
I think the answer is pinakalagay din ng 5:5.
1 Peter 5:5? Who said it? 1 Peter 5:5. 1 Peter 5, verse 5. In the same way, you who are younger, submit yourselves to your elders. All of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Okay? Again, very, very good. And it's very true. And yet, as a fledgling bagong Christian, I still am looking for ano ang pwede kong susuotin. As a man, alam ba ninyo yung Speedo? Yung parang swimming suit na kwan lang, parang briefs lang? Or bahag? Oh, yan. Pwede ba akong mag-Speedo? I see several people saying no. The place? Interesting. Interesting. You're a hard group to teach. Advanced talaga kayo. Okay. Can my wife come to church in shorts? I heard more answers on that one. I heard something over here. Depends on the culture. Interesting. When you're Roman, yeah. Okay, so I have actually found a couple of texts that a little bit deal with this, but it's not all that clear actually. Where am I here? Okay, please read Deuteronomy 22, verse 5. (22:5). Does anyone have it yet? 22:5? Sure.
It says here, a woman shall not wear anything that pertains to a man, nor shall a man put on a woman's garment. For all who do so are an abomination to the Lord your God.
Thank you. Okay, so, anong sabi ng talata? Ang lalaki daw ay hindi pwedeng magsuot ng pangbabae. Ang babae hindi pwedeng magsuot ng panglalaki. Okay. So, men wear to here, women wear to there? No? No? My grandma got really upset with my aunt when she first wore jeans back in the 70s, I think. Kasi jeans were men's clothing. But now, well, let's go back to what they wore. Like, I have several pictures that I found now, parang modern renditions, but this is actually a painting from back in their days. Good question. Good question. All right, maybe this one's a little bit clearer to you. Now, this is really fancy. Hindi ito yung parang pangkaraniwan. Like, this is a rich person's dress, okay? But the point here is, what was the basic difference between the men and the women's clothing? The hair, yes, hair was longer for sure. But what about the dress? Scarf. But they both kind of had. Hers is longer. This one's a little bit extreme, actually. The reality is, most of the time, the difference between, especially kapag sa mga poor, mga normal clothes, yung hindi mga rich. Generally speaking, the difference between women's clothing and men's clothing, when this text was written, was this much. Maybe more like that much, yeah. So basically, they wore the same thing. They just wore one a little bit longer and one a little bit shorter. So again, there is no specific definition in the Bible. What it says is women don't wear men's clothing. Huwag magpaka lalaki. At ang lalaki ay huwag magpaka babae. How do you know what is women's clothing or men's clothing? You've said it several times already. You can say it again. Culturally defined. Culturally defined. Okay, let's go back to our verses. Let's look at Exodus 19, verse 10. So, a little bit more instruction, actual instruction that we can find about what people should wear when going to church. Sort of church. Oh, someone else. Dave, you've got it there.
And the Lord said unto Moses, Go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes.
All right. So this isn't about what we're supposed to wear, but it is clear na gusto ng Panginoon that we should be clean, we should wash before we meet God. Now this wasn't actually going to church. If I remember right, that was when they were going to meet God at Mount Horeb, yung pagbigay ng 10 Commandments. They were supposed to wash their clothes. I want to ask you, how many changes of clothes did people have? Ilang bihisan ba ang meron yung mga taga-Israel yung panahon nila? Most people had one. Which is why we hear things like the parang yung posta, like the bet with Samson was pairs of clothing because they were expensive. That was like money. So like the Roman soldiers were paid in salt, in Jewish times, people sometimes were paid in clothing. It was expensive. When Achan stole from Jericho, he stole gold and silver and clothes because they were expensive, hard to make. Most people only had one pair of clothes. So sometimes we tell people, wear the best that you have. And that's appropriate. Wala namang mali doon. Pero remember that in their day, they only had one pair of clothes. Wala silang suot pang Sabado at suot pang trabaho. It was the same thing. I've had people, the reason I say this is, I've had people really hurt the mangin by telling them that it is inappropriate. Masama na tumayo sila sa harapan ng iglesia na ang suot nila ay nicely washed shorts and a clean t-shirt. When that's all they had. They were wearing the best that they had. We had a student, because we have mangin working students that live with us and go to school at AUP. So bagong dating siya galing sa Mindoro. Just arrived, very first Sabbath. And he was asked to speak, not like at PIC, big church, no. He was asked to speak just in a little clubhouse in a subdivision for Friday night. And he just came from Mindoro. He only had flip-flops, chinelas. After ng kanyang sermon, nilapitan siya talaga ng matanda doon at sinabihan na masama yon, bawal yon, hindi karapat-dapat na tumayo sa pulpito kung walang black na sapatos. Napahiya talaga yung estudyante na yan. Kami, tawa actually kami, pero but we tried to reassure him that hindi naman he didn't commit a sin. Like he was wearing the best that he had. Yeah. Okay. One more. Exodus 30, 19 to 21. Exodus 30, 19 to 21. Looks like Adrian has it. Exodus 30, is it 19 to 21? Yeah, 30, 19 to 21. 30.
Exodus 30, verse 19. It says here, for Aaron and his son shall wash their hands and their feet therein. When they go into the tabernacle of the congregation, they shall wash with water, that they die not. Or when they come near to the altar to minister, to burn offering made by fire under the fire.
Okay, yep.
21. So they shall wash their hands and their feet, that they die not. And it shall be statute forever to them, even to him who he sees throughout their generations.
Okay, so we have another instruction. When they were coming to stand before God, not only were they supposed to wash their clothes, but they were supposed to wash themselves. They were supposed to be clean. All right, but we're kind of getting away from the topic, right? So we're seeing things na dapat gawin, dapat maglaba, dapat maligo, before going to church, before going to God, to be with God is what we're talking about. But again, ano ang modest? Which is my original question. And have you gotten the point yet that walang definition in the Bible? There is no definition. It does say to be modest. And like many have pointed out, most of his instructions is actually about character modesty. But physical modesty, it does say to be modest, pero walang definition in the Bible. It is culturally defined. Why? Why is it culturally defined? Why did God leave it up to the cultures? There is not one size that fits all. Different cultures are so different in what is considered modest and immodest. Let's just say I know this is a little bit stereotypical language, but if we say like conservative Adventist typical standards of modesty, what would be appropriate for women to wear to church? A dress or a skirt, right? Below the knee. Okay? Very good. And some say long sleeves. Okay? Mm-hmm. If you work with conservative Muslims, is that modest? No. Karumalduman. I still remember in some places, yes, that's all you can show. Yeah. I still remember that when I was in college, a lady came to speak for a convocation that had 2 fingers. Like of her 10 fingers of her hands, she only had 2 left. She and her husband were aid workers in some Middle Eastern country and were caught in an IED, in a bomb. At, of course, she and her husband were badly injured. Binuhat sila ng mga Muslim doon, nilagay sa likod ng truck, whatever truck was there. At talaga, it stuck in her mind so clearly because one of the Muslim men very carefully pulled her skirt down to where it covered her ankle. He was protecting her modesty according to their standards. So yes, even what we as conservative Adventists typically would consider modest, may mga lugar na kahit yun is actually hindi sapat, is not modest. And then you go to other parts of the world. So there's a tribe in Papua New Guinea na literally ang suot lang nila ay taba ng baboy. Yeah. So have you ever seen pig fat when it gets old and rancid? It turns black. So they cover themselves, walang cloth, they cover their entire bodies with pig fat and just let it rot on them. And then they put some more pig fat on. And then they put some more pig fat on. Para sa kanila, yun ang standard of modesty. If you're not wearing pig fat, you're not modest. Good question. So another story from my favorite storyteller, Dale. When the kamea, so I already said, right, yung mga kamea ay grass skirt sa baba, and then wala silang suot sa taas. In fact, I have a picture. Ganito ang suot ng mga kamea. Okay, these are all men. The women, they wear the same grass skirt around the front, but they have bark. Bark like para yung upuan nila, like to sit on in the back. Okay? Have you guys ever seen bark cloth? Yeah, some of you have. It's actually, people think it like parang mukhang magaspang or ano, but it's actually quite soft. It's quite nice. Pinupukpok ng pinupukpok hanggang malambot. Yeah. So ganun yung suot nila sa likod. Now, when it came time for their very first baptism, big deal. Like totally unreached tribe, first time any Christians, any Adventists in that tribe. The people, the conference was so excited, they sent the conference president to do the baptism. And Dale's thinking, oh no, oh boy, what's going to happen here? How am I going to manage this? Kasi hindi okay sa conference president na yung mga babae doon to be baptized ay walang suot on top. But he also didn't want to embarrass them and to offend them. So what am I going to do about this? This is what I'm going to do. With the time when last time that he went to town, they would go to town every 6 months. So you have to plan ahead. The last time he went to town, he bought a whole bunch of t-shirts, identical t-shirts. And then when it came time for the baptism, binigyan niya ang bawat baptismal candidate ng t-shirt. At ang sabi niya, you wear this on your baptism, this is like a special treat, a special present for you. When he actually, yung totoong dahilan ay para lang for the outsider's sense of modesty, right? So, got to church, Sabbath morning, all the conference president and all his officials from 4 days trip away are sitting in the church. Well, remember, para sa mga babae doon, this is not sexual. There's nothing sexual about this. This is a tool for feeding babies. Okay? So, yung isang nanay doon, one of the baptismal candidates, sinuot niya yung kanyang baro nung umaga na yon, pero a few minutes later, gutom na yung bata. Umiiyak na. At may sagabal doon sa tools. So anong ginawa niya? Kinuha niya yung kanyang machete, and she cut a big slit in the middle of her shirt and took the tools out para magamit. So she's wearing her shirt in church, but everything's hanging out. But it got better. One of the young unmarried girls was the Sabbath school superintendent. And so she walked up to the front at the beginning of church. And first time that she had ever tried to lead church in front of so many people and visitors from the outside. She was so embarrassed when she got up to the front and she turned around and saw all these visitors everywhere. She picked up her shirt and put it over her head to cover her face. So for her, what was the embarrassing part? The face. There's nothing embarrassing about this. This is just a tool for feeding babies. This is what's embarrassing. Everyone is staring at my face. Different standards of modesty in different places. Okay, it gets better. Well, maybe not. But I think there's another funny aspect. So Dale took pictures of his people, of course. We all take pictures where we serve as missionaries, right? And then isang beses, gumala siya doon sa highlands of Papua New Guinea. Ibang tribo naman doon. And when he went up there, he went to a tribe na ang suot ng mga lalaki. I didn't quite do it well enough. Just a minute. I'm going to crop the picture a little bit more. There we go. So try to stay appropriate here, but show you what they wear up there. A gourd. So familiar ba kayo sa gourd? Tangtang? Parang yung balat ng patula. Kung tanggalin yung loob and then patuyuin, matigas siya. Pwedeng pangigib ng tubig. Yun ang suot ng mga lalaki doon. And that's actually a fairly modest kind. Some of them are like, kung para sa atin, things hang out. Yeah. So, yun ang suot nila doon. When he was showing pictures of his people, na ang suot nila ay mga grass skirts, like, the man got really disturbed. Really, like, hindi okay sa kanya. And he looked and he looked and he looked and he was scandalized. And after a while he asked Dale, he said, because like the Khmer people were wearing grass skirts, right? Now, which is more modest, grass skirts or gourds? By our standards. But this man was scandalized and he said, under those grass skirts, they are wearing gourds, right? Kasi para sa kanya, kung hindi nakasuot ng gourd, napaka-immodest. Different standards of modesty in different places. For the Mangyan, they wear bahag, G-strings, or loincloths. Pero para sa mga Mangyan, may very, very strict rules kung paano dapat suotin ang bahag. Para sa mga alangan, so you always have the bayakos, like the belt that goes around, and then you have a piece of cloth, like siguro ganito kalapad. For the Mangyan, you have to tuck it through and bring over enough yung flap in the front ay sapat para wala kang makitang profile. Parang wala kang makitang speedo doon sa ilalim. Okay? And then it goes through and tucks over on the other side. That's where the story, narinig ba ninyo na yung mga Mangyan may buntot? Yeah? Yeah. All around the Philippines, people have heard that the Mangyan have tails. It came from that. The G-string coming out of the back sometimes looks a little bit like a tail. And some people use that to parang murain sila. Parang ganun. So anyway, ganun ang standards para sa mga alangan. Now, there's a sub-tribe of the Mangyan that is called the Tagalangan. That's actually where the name Alangan comes from. My tribe, where I grew up, is actually the true Mangyan. Even though everyone on the island is called Mangyan, these are the true Mangyan. The Tagalangan, they hated the Mangyan. And they wanted to find an excuse they were always trying to find excuses to go to war with the Mangyan. But in order to be just, may justice din sila, there had to be an excuse to go to war. I forgot the time. Last couple of illustrations. Kailangan may excuse, may reason. So what they would do is they would purposely wear their bayakos really, really long. Or the iputan in the back. They would wear it really, really long. They would just wear their G-strings funny. So that when they would walk into the Mangyan villages, the people would, tingnan mo yung bahag niya. And then the Mangyan would the Tagalangan would get really angry. You're minamura ninyo kami. And they would take all of the Mangyan men and they would put them face down on the longhouse floor, bamboo floor. Yung mga kamay nila lusot sa kawayan, tinatali nila sa baba, lined up head to foot. Then they would fill up their baskets with everything useful. They would put them on their heads and then they would walk across the men out of the house and go back home again. So ganun ka peaceful ang war para sa kanila. So parang pagmumura, pero not really violent in any way. But anyway, that's, again, the wearing of the G-strings. For the Taubuid, where I was in the second tribe, for them, modest kapag, basta nakatak in. So just enough to keep it from falling down. Yung speedo, nandyan pa rin talaga. Yung profile. And then, of course, over time, lumuluwag yon. So, yeah, you can imagine what happens. it gets a little bit loose, and it's definitely not modest by our standards. Okay, so it's time for a break. But let me apply this a little bit. In the Hmongin tribes, is it wrong to go to church wearing a G-string? Okay, I see a few people saying no, and I see a lot of people saying, It's been washed. Yes. Actually, it's kind of funny. Like we would have wooden benches when they did build a church. They had wooden benches, and like when they would stand up to sing a song or something, you would see all these little lines, wet lines on the boards. Kasi bagong laba. They had just washed them, but they only had one G-string, so they would wash it and put it back on again. And so as they're sitting there, they would have these little lines of wet on the So yes, they were freshly washed G-strings. Yep. So I understand it seems really weird to us, but I would say that in our context, for them it is appropriate and modest to wear G-strings to church. Now, unfortunately, the Lowland Adventist Church, hindi okay sa kanila. So they said, no. You have to wear black pants, button-up shirt, and black shoes. Yun ang minimum na kailangan para maging Adventist at pumasok sa simbahan. Yeah, exactly. You're going to pay for it. So the Hmongin leaders now are saying, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And we said, study the biblical principles, study your culture, and decide what you're going to do. And we did help them a little bit in this process. Pero ang kanilang decision ay ganito. They would wear G-strings on the bottom, and they would wear a clean, fresh t-shirt on the top. They didn't want to wear the whole thing because, first of all, most of them at that time didn't have it. Pero some of them were able to find in the ukay black pants, parang punit-punit man sana, but they had, some of them were able to get it, but they were still in a very, very strong evangelistic phase. Many Highlanders were still coming down from the mountains. At pagpasok nila sa simbahan, if everyone they saw in the church was wearing black pants and shoes and a shirt and a button-down shirt, I'm uncomfortable with this. I can't do this. Either sometimes some of the people are literally scared of clothing. Like dun sa mga taubid, takot talaga sila sa damit. Like they literally think that it brings evil, brings sickness. But at the very least, they would be very uncomfortable. But if they didn't wear any, then the lowlanders would constantly be angry at them and telling them how they were not Adventists. So ang kanilang compromise, clean t-shirt on top and a G-string on the bottom. Now, 20, 30 years later, ano naman ang suot nila? Now, well, they have gotten to the point na yung mga Hmongin sa bundok hindi takot sa damit. Most of them don't wear clothes, don't wear Western clothes. May mga suot naman sila. But they don't wear Western clothes, but they're not scared of it anymore. So sa mga Hmongin churches that have access to clothing, they wear clothes. Hindi na sila nagbabahag. Actually, nagbabahag pa rin sila, pero inside, under their shorts. Kasi yun ang comfortable para sa kanila. But most of them, none of them wear shoes. And most of them don't wear pants. So now they'll wear whatever pants they have, or nice, clean shorts, and the nicest shirt that they have. Yun ang modest and appropriate ayon sa kanilang context, sa kanilang situation. All right, we're past time for a break, so I will see you in about 10 minutes.